Greetings, serve this may concern. Christian Aguilar here, back with another video. And in today's video, I am going to be doing something a little differently. Something a little bit on the movie news side, if you want to categorize it like that. I'm just going to simply go through my Instagram favorites feed. I just clicked favorite on all the movie or entertainment-centric profiles and pages that I follow, in hopes that anything that catches my mind, I can just quickly, give my 2 cents in and give you my opinion. And feel free to comment down below about your opinion, if you agree with mine or not, or if you agree with whatever article is being presented, or headline, rather, is being presented in front of us. So let's dive right in. So first, right off the bat, Hollywood Reporter, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, 685 million minutes viewed. Yikes. I don't really trust the whole streaming services. This movie has streamed for so many minutes, or so many households have streamed this movie, because to me it seems like the numbers behind streaming services have always been very confidential. They haven't been really open to the public like how box office numbers are. So we can clearly see how well a movie is doing and how popular a movie is doing based off of those box office numbers. But in terms of streaming services, yes, we have all these companies coming out and telling us that, hey, we reached the top charts. This show has gotten so many hours played, and so many people have seen it and clicked on it or whatever. But how can we really trust it? Specifically with Netflix. Netflix never really gives out the amount of viewership that each show gets. I heard that they take into consideration the amount of people that sign up for Netflix when the series or movie drops. That's when they know something is very popular, when they see an influx of signups, not if the already existing members are watching it or not, and that could always change. The YouTube algorithm has been like that too, even its rules and regulation. When you get into wanting to be a YouTuber, you have to keep up and follow all the regulations that they want you to have, because what does YouTube look at when it comes to your channel? Do they look at the amount of likes you get? Do they look at the amount of views you get? Do they look at the amount of subscribers you have? Sometimes it's one or the other. Sometimes it's all three, and it always changes. And that's one of the hardest things you have to do as a YouTuber, is to follow that and make sure you're catering your content, or you're catering how much you upload to that specific regulation, so it's very tough to keep up with that. And I see the same thing with what is successful on streaming services. They're doing essentially the same thing. It's the same mindset. We're going to test a product's popularity based off of whatever the case may be. Is it views? Is the amount of hours watched? So when I see an article that says, oh, Aquaman Lost Kingdom, 685 minutes viewed, what is that? Ultimately the movie is still a failure. It didn't make a lot of money, if any, at the box office. Definitely not compared to the first one. I think the first one's in the $1 billion club. I think it made $1 billion. So the second one did not do the first one's money. So it is through and through a failure. So it's kind of funny how they're trying to advertise the film again, saying hey, it's the most viewed. It's got this many minutes viewed on our charts. It's the top streaming movie. I see it as just we're pumping a little bit more life into what we know is a dead movie. And I love James Wan. James Wan is one of my favorite horror directors, that worked his way into becoming one of my favorite directors when he was doing Furious 7. That was literally the first Fast and Furious movie that I went out to see in theaters. I have never, ever sat and really watched a Fast and Furious movie before that. When I saw that James Wan was doing Furious 7, I'm like, I think I need to catch up here. And I sat and I watched all of them up to 7, and I went out to a theater to watch that. So I love James Wan because I love what he did with Insidious. I love what he did with The Conjuring, and earlier in his career, he started the Saw franchise with him and Lee Whannell. So to grow up with his movies scaring the shit out of me, to now admiring him as a filmmaker, I wish nothing but the best for him. But unfortunately, he's mixed up with the whole DC Warner Brothers fiasco, where he thought he was going to be playing in a larger universe, but it turns out that universe didn't really lead to anything, so they're going to scrap everything and reboot everything with someone else entirely. So that was a whole cesspool of bullshit that James Wan had to deal with. So it was always going to be tough to make the second Aquaman movie a huge success. How it was tough to make the first Aquaman movie a huge success, and to my surprise and to basically everyone's surprise, it did really well. You know, so of course it was going to get a sequel, but was the sequel ever going to do as well as the first? I really didn't think so. I honestly didn't think so. And that's the same question for Joker Part 2 or Part 2 or whatever you want to call it. I'm very curious. I see a lot of 50-50 in the audience. Every time I read comments on Instagram or I read whatever about that movie, people are excited, and then the same half of people are not excited. So interesting when it comes to DC sequels as of right now. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom I have not seen. I've seen the first one. Thought the first one was all right. It was pretty fun. You know, it's not the best DC movie. It's not the best comic book movie. It wasn't the worst either. So it was all right. It was in that gray area of being okay. I have not seen the second one, not because out of any protest or anything, because I'm genuinely not interested in watching that. You know, I might check it out, because I do like James Wan, I do like Patrick Wilson, and that's a little director-actor team-up that I have become a fan of. So I might just check it out for that, and I like the idea of Aquaman and Orm kind of teaming up in this one and not being adversaries, and Black Manta being the main antagonist, and I love Black Manta as a villain. I feel like I loved seeing him in action in the first movie. I wanted to see more of him, and I knew that they were going to lead up to using him more in the sequels, and I knew that this was going to be that movie. So I might just check it out, but as of right now, I'm not like, oh, I got to see this like right now. I'm not itching to watch it, you know? And this whole article right here is just like, okay, you know, it's already a failure of a movie. It's not going to revive any life into it. So who cares if it got 600 million minutes viewed? We're not going to get an Aquaman 3. All right. Ewan McGregor still hopeful for Star Wars return. There's still time to tell more stories. There's no update for a second season of Obi Wan just yet, and this comes from comicbook.com. The other one came from Hollywood Reporter. This one comes from comicbook.com, or yeah, the Instagram page. All this is sponsored. This video is sponsored by all the pages you see and the accounts that I follow. If you haven't followed them, please go follow them, because this is where I get my movie and entertainment news updates from all these profiles and accounts. So this video is sponsored by them, because they're giving the content that I want to talk about right now. So Ewan McGregor is still hopeful. I personally would not be disappointed if Ewan McGregor did not come back to do more Obi-Wan stuff. And I love Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan, man. I think there's no other actor that could do Obi-Wan, especially in the near future. Maybe like 40 years later in the future, and they want to do something or reboot the entire thing again. I don't know. Maybe then. But as of right now, Ewan McGregor, if he's not doing it, don't do anything with that character. You know, it's just one of those characters you just don't really do without those actors. And the way Disney has gone about with the whole CGI-ing characters, because we don't have the actor on set, it's not really met with the highest of praise, you know? So that's a practice that I feel like they need to move away from. Unless it's done very well and very tastefully and in a short amount of time, then sure. I mean, the best example of that today, like right now, I still think it holds up, is General Tarkin in Star Wars Rogue One. Recreating that actor and that character in Rogue One and seeing it on screen, I'm not afraid to admit that when I was sitting there in the theater, I was thinking that the actor's still alive, he still looked like that, and he was in the movie. I did not think like, oh my gosh, that's a CGI character. I genuinely thought that was just someone or the same actor playing. I know my mental math was totally wrong. I wasn't even thinking about it logically. That's how immersed I was when watching Rogue One for the first time. It was a very well done film. You know, it was a very well done movie. So to know that that was all CGI, that was all character recreated because the actor has long since passed away, and that was done flawlessly, man. There was like no bit of it that looked off. I was even questioning if that was a real person or not at the time of watching the movie. So it was very well done, and I have yet to really see anything that really matched that. Probably Spangler in Ghostbusters Afterlife. I think that was done very tastefully. I mean, sure, it didn't really look the best, but it was done tastefully to the point where that wasn't a problem. Like, that was awesome. So I think Spangler's return with General Tarkin's performance in Rogue One, those two are like top tier, you know, of recreating a character with CGI, but that always doesn't work. It worked twice out of how many times have they done it so far? So it doesn't always work. And I think that is the same thing with Obi Wan. If Ewan McGregor can come back, stop with the Obi Wan stories and move on into more stuff from the galaxy. I mean, there's so much more stuff to explore with Star Wars, you know, and Disney is not going the right way with it. People want Knights of the Old Republic. We're getting the Acolyte. You know, it's kind of like meeting us halfway. We're giving you something that's set around the time of Knights of the Old Republic, but it's not Knights of the Old Republic, you know? So we're still doing our own thing, but we're trying to set it around the time period where you guys will be happy with, you know? So they're not going about it the right way, and if Ewan McGregor doesn't come back, or if they don't have anything else to do with Obi-Wan, then just leave his story at peace. You know, it kind of is complete. We do see all of Obi-Wan's story. We know how it ends. We see how it relatively begins as him as a Padawan going into being Anakin's master, the downfall, him dealing with that, him training Luke. In the Obi-Wan series, we see his rematch with Vader / Anakin. That was really a huge bow. That was a nice little bow tie on Obi-Wan's story, is to have him go off against Darth Vader one last time. You know, canonically, that's the first time I think he goes up against him, or second time if you want to count him fighting Anakin at the end of episode 3. So to see Obi-Wan kind of in his prime a little bit, like a younger than Alec Guinness, yet he's older than a young Obi-Wan. That was like a sweet spot for Obi-Wan versus Vader. And we got that already. And it was pretty sick. No matter what you thought of the series overall, I really enjoyed the Vader versus Obi-Wan fights. I enjoyed all the Vader stuff, to be honest with you. That was just so sick. But I really enjoyed those fights and those moments, and I thought that was very well done. And I think that was a great end to Obi-Wan's story, and even Ewan McGregor's portrayal as the character. You know, if they want to hang it up after this is a great way to end it. But if they are going to come out with more stuff, I'm glad to know that Ewan McGregor is happy to return, you know. But I personally think let's lay it to rest, man. You know, I think Obi-Wan's story is pretty much told at this point. Yeah, there's not really, unless you're going to spin him off and now he's going to be some swashbuckling hero, you know, which they might just do. Who knows? But I think they should just leave it at that. All good things must come to an end. What has film enthusiasts got to say about Christopher Nolan? Christopher Nolan will be honored with a knighthood in England, earning the distinguished title of Sir Christopher Nolan. Crazy. I mean, it makes sense. If there's going to be any other person to get knighted, Christopher Nolan, man. Come on. Christopher Nolan. I'm surprised he wasn't knighted already. But I'm glad that he was finally won an Oscar for directing, which is crazy. It was Oppenheimer that gave it to him. I feel like he should have got one for Inception. People say he should have got one for The Dark Knight, you know, best directing. And so I'm finally glad that he's, you know, honored with that achievement. You know, I mean, even if he'd never got an Oscar, come on, that's still a top tier director, man. I know a lot of people don't like Nolan. Some people love Nolan, and you know, you got people that are on both sides, both ends of that debate. But every time I see a Nolan movie in the theaters, I'm captivated, and I hardly get up while watching a Nolan film in theaters. I mean, I sat all 3 hours of Oppenheimer in IMAX, and that wasn't the theater I went to didn't have the most comfortable seatings. No recliners, no. It was like the old school, you know, pop down the seat and sit on it, you know. So, and I sat through 3 hours with a bad lower back, and it was still quite captivating to watch visually, you know. So no matter what it is, I think Christopher Nolan at his weakest is any other filmmaker at their best, and that is really something. Same thing with Martin Scorsese. Martin Scorsese is a great director, great filmmaker, really renowned. Everyone loves him, praises him, and he didn't get his Oscar till The Departed in, what was that, 2006, 2005, which is way long overdue at that point. He should have got one for Goodfellas, Taxi Driver, Casino, you name it. He should have got one for that. So I'm glad that Christopher Nolan is not only got his Oscar, but now is getting knighted, and now he is Sir Christopher Nolan. So I wonder if he's going to put that in the beginning of his movies now. Is that going to be his credit now? Written and directed by Sir Christopher Nolan. Oh, man, that'd be crazy. That'd be crazy. All the Sir Christopher Nolan movies are even better than the Christopher Nolan movies. Imagine that. That'd be a great future for cinema. All right, so IGN got Kristen Stewart joining the MCU. Sounds like a fucking nightmare. That's what she said about that. It sounds like a fucking nightmare unless Greta Gerwig directs. Interesting. Via Not Skinny but Not Fat podcast. Oh, because she said this on a podcast. Okay. All right. It says here Kristen Stewart says she will likely never do a Marvel movie. Understandable. I don't think anyone was expecting her to do a Marvel movie, so that's kind of funny how she was asked about it. And didn't mince words about it. But the door was left open for one possibility. If Barbie's Greta Gerwig is willing to direct, that would be very interesting. I don't know what property would they do. I think that would be a question for Greta Gerwig. Like, I know you're probably not thinking of doing a Marvel movie, but if you were, what character would you take a crack at? You know, if a character or a team or a specific comic line, like if they do it right, and I know we already have a terrific show for this character, but if they do it right and they bring back Kristen Ritter, I could see Greta Gerwig possibly directing Alias Investigations. Maybe that's a movie or a series, and they want to retitle it Alias Investigations, so it's more of like a detective, maybe different episode, different case type deal. Every episode's a different case. Who knows? But that would be pretty cool. I mean, I know that's a pretty badass female character with great three-dimensional depth, especially when she's the Jessica Jones character. Because originally she was Jewel. That was her superhero name. Don't know much about Jewel, but I know she really got popular and her character really got a lot more depth when her character went into the whole Jessica Jones Alias Investigation run. So I would love to see Greta Gerwig probably tackle that. But before that, I would want to see what she would want to do. That would be pretty cool. I enjoyed Barbie. I wasn't one to like, F Barbie. It should never have been made and this and that and it's whatever the case may be. It's just, I had a fun time with it. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest movie, like Team Pink, whatever the case may be. I wasn't like praising the movie. I wasn't like bashing the movie. I was just surprised and happy that I had fun and I enjoyed the movie. I was entertained by it. I laughed my ass off. I got what they were trying to say. None of it went over my head. I didn't feel offended by anything that they said because I'm a dude. Like some people were like really sensitive about this movie. And I don't know, man. I didn't get all that hoopla. I was just generally entertained by the movie. So if she wants to do something with Marvel, why not? Doors are open because Marvel needs a little pick-me-up as of right now. But they are doing rather well with X-Men 97. So I think the X-Men is going to be their next focal point. Mutants and X-Men are going to be their focal point from here on out. For sure. And I don't think Greta Gerwig, Kristen Stewart are ever going to touch a Marvel project because they want to do their own stuff. For sure. Kristen Stewart post-Twilight has done a lot of amazing work. If you still remember her from Twilight and you still think, oh, I can't separate her from Twilight, she has done a lot of amazing stuff since then, and she stays relatively in the indie low budget realm. She doesn't come out and do big budget movies that much. So A24 is more of like, she was doing A24 type movies before A24 was a thing, if that makes sense. You feel? So those are the types of movies she relatively sticks to. And that's why I was so interested about Greta Gerwig doing Barbie, because Greta Gerwig is an independent filmmaker. So to hear that she was doing a big budget movie like Barbie, that was a first. So that's why I was so interested. What would an independent voice bring to a big budget movie? And we saw that. Very successful and very controversial. I'm still calling Barbie a controversial movie. We got a very successful and controversial movie, and in my opinion, a very entertaining movie. That's a feel-good movie. I can see that being kind of a feel-good movie because there's a lot of that's definitely, if I've seen some messed up movies, that's a feel-good movie. Let's see. Marvel, what's this? Wade and Logan team up. Deadpool and Wolverine, World War III. This is a comic line. I like how Marvel does have these trailers for comics. DC also has them too, like the motion graphics for any upcoming comic lines. It's pretty badass. Great way to market the comic. This is obviously, clearly a new line because of Deadpool 3, or should I call it Deadpool and Wolverine. So obviously they're going to make a comic book line based off those guys. A new one, I should say, because there's been multiple in the past. Godzilla -1 director signs with American talent agency CAA. Look at that. Yeah, Godzilla -1. I mean, that with the budget that they had, which is not, they didn't even have like $100 million, and this looks like an $100 million movie, like Avengers level type budget. They didn't have that. They didn't have what a lot of other Godzilla movies, specifically American Godzilla movies, had. The visual effects in this was top notch. Blew me the hell away. This movie blew me away twice in theaters, man. This is definitely the best Godzilla movie I have seen, in both from America and Japan. I know that's easy to say now. I know, there's a lot of hype around it. Like some old-time Godzilla fans will say, no, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla or Attack of All Monsters or whatever their favorites from the past is, right? But -1 and Shin Godzilla, because Shin Godzilla is a whole other movie of craziness. If you like -1, Shin Godzilla's crazy. I mean, it's the same Godzilla in that sense. It's technically in the same continuity, those two films. But -1, man, I was just so blown away watching it in theaters. I mean, the sound design, I didn't even see it in IMAX, and the sound was just vibrating, man. Like, it was just, like, I remember when Godzilla did his atomic breath for the first time in the movie, and it just, it gave, like, there's, every time he does it, the movie gives Godzilla that moment with the atomic breath. And when that shit went off, and you felt it. And this is me after watching Oppenheimer, and I saw Oppenheimer in IMAX, and I'm like, the bomb scene in Oppenheimer is like a Nerf gun compared to the atomic bomb scene in Godzilla -1. I get it. It's a fucking monster movie, and his breath is an attack, so it's going to be larger and more catastrophic than a realistic atomic bomb. It's science fiction. I get that. But in terms of sound design and really feeling it in a theater, and one was in IMAX. Oppenheimer, I saw that in IMAX. I didn't see -1 in IMAX. That was a standard movie theater, movie screening, and I still felt as if that shit was going off right in front of me. I felt like I had to hold on to my seat. That felt like a 4D movie. So comparing it that way, Godzilla blew Oppenheimer out of the freaking water, man. That was just, I remember I'm like, that's how you do an explosion on screen. That's how you do an explosion in a movie. That's how you do it. Godzilla or not, that's how you do a fucking explosion in a movie. And that just blew me away. So I'm glad to see that the director is now getting more work in America, because that is essentially where everyone wants to end up if you're around the world. America is the hub for cinema. I mean, Hollywood's here, man. Like, that is, everyone looks at America for, like, if you make it in America, you're popular everywhere, right? That's that idea, because unfortunately, our media is seen mostly around the world, but we don't watch a lot of media outside of our country's borders. Americans don't watch a lot of foreign films. Unless you're a cinephile and you're really into this stuff, you're going to be watching that stuff. But if you're not, and you're just a casual moviegoer, or movie watcher, TV watcher, you're not going to be going out and exploring stuff with subtitles in it. You're probably going to want to wait for that American remake, right? In that sense, it is very ideal to now work in Hollywood, especially if you're not from America. If you come all the way over here, boom, make a splash, and you get seen by Hollywood. And now you're getting offers, and now you're teaming up with Hollywood agencies. That's the dream, man. That's the goal. Big congratulations to Takahashi Yamazaki, because that is no easy feat, man. So, and he did excellent work with -1. With this signing over with an American agency, I wonder if this is going to, obviously this is going to put so much more on his plate. He's probably going to have so many projects offered to him, and he's going to probably want to do so many projects. But I want to see more from that Godzilla, man. I want to see more. I'm unsure if he did Shin Godzilla. If he did do Shin Godzilla and he did -1, we need him to do another Godzilla movie ASAP before he does anything else. Please finish off like a Godzilla trilogy that's going on right now. Just finish it off, please. I know there's more to tell there. But if he didn't do Shin Godzilla, and that was by another director, then I can see him moving away from Godzilla, leaving it up to someone else to take the next movie, and while he goes and explores other things. That's cool. You know, now I'm curious. I'm going to look up if he directed Shin Godzilla as well. So he didn't direct Shin Godzilla. It was directed by 2 other directors. He only directed -1 in terms of Godzilla movies. So yeah, that makes sense if they want to stick with that tradition of passing the torch to another director for the next Godzilla movie. Totally understandable. But I would like for him to do another one. I mean, you see this, everyone sees the success of -1. So if he can do another one and grace us all with another glorious Godzilla film similar to -1, similar in quality, I should say, to -1, that'd be awesome. And then move on to new stuff. But he looks like he's already moving on to new stuff. And regardless, Godzilla or not, knowing how great -1 is, I'm really curious to see what other projects are being presented to him, what other projects he's going to say yes to. It's going to be really cool. And to see him standing in front of Star Wars characters like C-3PO and R2-D2, is he going to do something in the Star Wars universe? I would like to see that. That'd be pretty cool to get something of that nature in Star Wars, you know, because Star Wars has a lot of creatures, a lot of aliens, so there could be something Godzilla-esque in Star Wars that people have to deal with in a sense. So that would be pretty cool. And regardless, if not, it would still be cool to see what else he got cooking up. You know, maybe not just Star Wars, but what if he does maybe, I don't know, RoboCop or something, you know, something that could be revitalized again, you know, for the better. So this would be pretty interesting to see. I can't wait to see what more comes out of this. I hope this doesn't taint his talents in any way or his workflow in any way. I hope this is all for the better and that he doesn't come across any scrutiny or lack of creative control over things, because that can tend to happen in the industry naturally, because it is one tricky and complicated industry. But we love it. Yes, a trailer for or a clip for One Love movie. I saw this movie. Not bad. Not bad movie. I felt like the critics were a little too harsh on it, but I thought it was well done. It is a little unfortunate to hear that the actor did sing for this movie and that they just dubbed Bob Marley's real vocals over the singing portions, because I would be very curious to hear how the actor sounded singing like Bob Marley. Did he match Bob Marley's sound? Maybe not, because maybe that's why they went the route to use Bob Marley's actual vocal recording. But regardless, great performance, great movie. It had a couple of funny moments in there, and I was pretty surprised by that. And it just makes you appreciate the musician. It makes you want to listen to the music more. And on top of that, you sit there and realize, holy shit, he had a lot of hits, man. Like, you think, oh, 1, 2, 3 hits. No, he had tons of hits, and this movie reminds you of that over and over and over again. So Bob Marley, One Love was a real great watch. I didn't see it in theaters, unfortunately, but we saw it my parents and I saw it at home, and it was really fun to watch it. What we got here? What's your game of the year so far? Game of the year this year currently, there's no like new games I've played in 2024. The newest game I probably played was like Spider-Man 2 on the PS5, Resident Evil 4. I mean, these are all last year titles. As of right now, I think Final Fantasy has the best shot of being game of the year. If nothing else comes out this year that's really like groundbreaking or defining, I could see the Final Fantasy Rebirth getting that game of the year, because man, Final Fantasy VII fans are just being spoiled left and right. I mean, not only do you get your favorite game remade after so long, because that Final Fantasy VII is like the Resident Evil 2 of the Final Fantasy series for a long time. It was one of the most beloved games, early titles in the series, one of the most beloved ones out of them. And for a long time, people have been asking for a remake. You know, before Resident Evil 2 remake came out, and all these new Resident Evil remakes came out, Resident Evil fans, when I say people, Resident Evil fans were clamoring, were on their knees praying to Capcom, the Capcom gods, if they will ever remake Resident Evil 2 in the style of how Resident Evil 1 remake was done. The Resident Evil 1 remake, especially with old school Resident Evil fans, is one of the best remakes for a Resident Evil game. It took everything great about the first game and just improved on it, every single aspect of it. The gameplay, I mean, yes, it's still tank controls, but it is smooth tank controls compared to the very first game, the pixel polygram. Yeah, that first PS1 game, the GameCube remake, way smoother in terms of handling the tank controls, way smoother, to the point where people wanted that to be Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 2 is a great game. You know, play the old classic Resident Evil 2 game. It's still a great game. The tank controls aren't as clunky as the first game. It's like they improved on them. But it still could be way better in terms of, you know, what the Resident Evil 1 remake showed us. It could be way smoother. And then it had the HD graphics. Well, I'm sorry. There wasn't HD at the time of the GameCube, but it was the character models, the settings, the character models, the settings, everything felt photorealistic, especially for the time. I mean, still, compare the classic Resident Evil to the Resident Evil 1 remake. There is a huge visual difference there, you know? So it just creates a whole different vibe, for sure. A different vibe for the better, I should say. And I always wanted to see that look and that feel for the Resident Evil 1 remake be brought to the big screen, you know? Why can't this feel like that on the movie screen, you know? And then when the Resident Evil 2 remake eventually came out, they really brought that realistic, photorealistic, cinematic feel to Resident Evil that I'm like, okay, if they're going to do a live action movie, they're obviously going to do it off of these games, because that's what makes the most sense. They look the most realistic, right? But at the time, Resident Evil 1 remake was the shit, man. It still is. I still love Resident Evil. You could still play that right now. If I recommend anyone wanting to get into Resident Evil and they want to start from the beginning, control-wise and story-wise, Resident Evil 1 remake. That's on like the PlayStation, Xbox, PC. It was originally on the GameCube, but now it's basically everywhere, just like Resident Evil 4. But Final Fantasy VII was that game. That was Resident Evil 2 for a long time. Everyone wanted an HD photorealistic remake of that game, and different control setup too. Like they wanted the camera behind the character, third-person view. You're able to move the camera all around. Like we wanted that freedom with Resident Evil 2 and with Final Fantasy VII. And now we're getting it with Final Fantasy VII. We got it with Resident Evil 2 done perfectly. But now we're getting it with Final Fantasy VII. But with Final Fantasy VII, we're not just getting one game. We're probably getting like 3 to 4 games based off of remaking just one title in this series. That's why Final Fantasy VII fans are so damn spoiled right now, and I wish I was you. You know how amazing it would have been if they're like, hey, we're still coming out with like part 3 of the Resident Evil 2 remake because of how dense the game is. I mean, there's a lot of sections in the classic game that is kind of shortened and cut out in the remakes. And that's not just the Resident Evil 2 remakes. That really happens in Resident Evil 3. Resident Evil 4, it happened here and there, but it kind of made up for it because Resident Evil 4 is a great remake on its own while tweaking a lot from the original. That was like a 1% chance that they will succeed, and it succeeded. But I'm still very envious because with Final Fantasy, it seems like they're not cutting anything. We're expanding on everything. That's what it feels like. And this is why we're taking up 4 games to actually remake one title in the series. So that's why I'm so envious of Final Fantasy fans, man. They're really taking the time and really putting their all into this. Square Enix is really putting their all into Final Fantasy. And my gosh, I'm so envious. So envious, man. Man. I feel like if Resident Evil did that, not only would they have a lot of sales, but I think they would increase their player base. Like, because there's a lot of times where I've been interested in playing I've never played a Final Fantasy game. I'm not a fan of the series, and it's not. And I don't hate the series. I am genuinely interested in playing it, and to know that each title is like totally different from one another, it's kind of an easier pill to swallow. And the one that has intrigued me the most is 7 for obvious reasons. But to know that the remake is like taking so long and is getting such an in-depth it makes me want to go back and play the original so I can really fully embrace and appreciate everything that they're doing with the 7 remake. So maybe it's going to be some time before I really get into it, but I love how there's like a interest building up in me with 7, especially seeing how much care is going into its remake. So I'm really excited about this. You know, I'm excited for Final Fantasy fans, and I'm excited as a video game fan overall. All right, moving on here. Films that will inspire you to travel. Yeah, there's a lot of great. Into the Wild, Secret Life of Walter Mitty is probably the best one in terms of traveling. Y Tu Mamá También, Talented Mr. Ripley. A lot of films, and that's a good little film watch list. See, and his wife, film producer. Oh, okay, that's cool. The other article didn't tell me about his wife. That's cool that they're both getting knighted. He's getting knighthood and she's getting damehood. That's pretty sick, man. So it's not just Christopher Nolan, it's his wife, his producing partner as well. That's awesome, man. Good for them. That's awesome. That's actually amazing, man. I wonder if we're going to be able to see the ceremony. I know that's usually a private thing. Rarely or hardly. I don't think it's even televised at all, but it'd be cool to see a little clip of them getting knighted. You know, that'd be pretty cool. Again, is both of their credits in the movies going to change now? I wonder. All right, next we got from Cinema Blend, Melissa Barrera, star of Scream, what was that, 5 and 6? And also Into the Heights, right? Is that what's called? In the Heights? In the Heights. There's a Into the Heights. In the Heights, that Lin-Manuel Miranda musical. She says, I've learned to never say never. But also, a lot of things would have to happen for Sam to come back. For now, next page, next chapter, and then we'll see what the future holds. So this all comes from her being very vocal about the conflict that's happening over in Israel between them and Palestine. And she was, I believe she was pro-Palestine. So she was open about which side she was on. And that kind of, I wouldn't really say totally blacklisted her, but it made her like drop from Scream 7. I heard that was one of the main reasons why the production kind of like cut ties with her. And she wasn't going to stay silent about her political beliefs, which good for her. You know, she's staying true to who she is. She's staying true to her beliefs, and she's speaking up about what she believes in, you know. But unfortunately, in a very delicate and complicated society and a very complicated industry like the entertainment industry, speaking your mind about certain topics and being vocal isn't always ideal, isn't it? And it's not seen as like proper in a lack of a better term. It's not seen as proper table etiquette, if you catch my drift. You know, gotta know how to read a room in terms of what you talk about and what you bring up with people, right? So that's really, really, really the case in the entertainment industry. And if you're vocal about certain things that are against certain people's agendas and the way they want to, you know, portray themselves, then of course they're going to be cutting ties with you, you know, unfortunately. But she's finally speaking out about if she's going to return, and after being fired from Screen 7, she reveals whether or not she could ever return. And like she said, there's a lot that would have to happen for Sam to come back and for her to come back. So as of right now, it is not 100% that she's going to come back anytime soon. I think she's probably going to be done with this franchise. Hopefully not horror in general. I do like her in horror movies. She has a great terrified face. Like, she really acts really well as a scream queen. That final girl vibe. Like, she really is a final girl in a horror movie. So I hope she doesn't like stay away from the genre altogether. But in terms of the franchise, yeah, she is done. I honestly think this franchise should have ended with Scream 4. I saw 5 and I saw 6, both in theaters. But I was way less excited to see 6 than I was 5. I wasn't really that excited to see 5, but I knew they had the old cast coming back and they were going to introduce the new one. And so I knew what to expect. But I was definitely way less excited to see 6 than I was 5. But I remember watching 4 in theaters. I was, I think, 11 or 12 years old, and my cousin and I grew up watching horror movies, specifically the slasher movies. So all the classic slasher monster movies, like Halloween with Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street, Jason Voorhees, Friday the 13th, Leatherface, so on and so forth. Hell, we even goofed around about Leprechaun from here and there, you know? So we were really into our slasher movies. And of course, one of our favorites that kind of topped all of them was Scream. Scream. We absolutely loved Scream. Just like 100% absolutely. And we always got a kick out of it because we knew Shaggy from Scooby-Doo was in the first Scream movie and he was Ghostface. So, yeah, we absolutely loved Scream. Scream's a part of my childhood. It's part of the reason why I'm a huge horror fan. And I really think when Wes Craven unfortunately passed away, I thought that was it for Scream movies. And I was okay with it. As a Scream fan, I'm like, that's cool, man. We don't need to go back to Woodsboro. We got 4 great films, 4 fun films. That's the most anyone could ever ask for. And all 4 films were done by the same director. They're all Wes Craven directed films. So you know that was like legit. That's a legit film series that you could watch from the first entry to the 4th. And you can kind of feel like, yeah, this is like one whole story. We're good. But Hollywood being Hollywood, they're going to make that money. Scream is a very popular franchise, a very popular IP, a very popular look. So, of course, they're going to be making money off of this. So when 6 came out, it was great. It was good. It wasn't great. It was good to the point where, of course, it was going to get 2 more sequels. But when it comes to Scream 7, it just seems like it's falling by the wayside, man. You know, it started with Melissa Barrera's firing. I mean, she's the main character. I mean, Scream 5 and 6 really set her up to be the main character of this franchise moving forward. She's taken the torch from Neve Campbell. So to know that you lost her, this like one of the first people you're firing, that was a huge red flag for Scream 7. And also it makes 5 and 6 kind of look pointless a little bit. Like, what was the point of focusing all this time and energy into the Carpenter sisters, which, yes, that's their last name in the movies. Why are we focusing all this time on these sisters when in the next movie they're out? You know, it's like we're setting them up to be the future and now they're not even here anymore. So it does make 5 and 6 feel a little obsolete in a sense, coming back into hindsight. And then when Jenna Ortega dropped from the project, you knew it was real. It was really over, because as much as Melissa Barrera is talented and is great, and I love Melissa Barrera, she's a great actress, very attractive, very beautiful, Jenna Ortega is way more popular than her. So I bet you they were like, we can drop Melissa Barrera. We'll still probably make that box office money because we got Jenna Ortega. We got Wednesday on our movie, man. She's not going to leave. We still got her. She could be the new face for the franchise moving forward. But this isn't really clear whether or not it was from scheduling because of Wednesday season 2. She had to schedule shooting that first. Or was it because she sided with Melissa Barrera, her on-screen sister, her co-star? Did she side with her in her being openly pro-Palestine, and she wanted to side with her and be against the idea that they fired her from the franchise? We're not too clear. Jenna Ortega didn't come out and say, hey, this is the reason why I did it, and this is the reason why I didn't do it. You know, it wasn't really clear. That's what kind of people chalked it up to. I'd like to think it was probably a good mixture of both, where she had to make room to film season 2, and on the same side, yeah, she was probably in consolidarity with her co-star. But regardless of what the reason was, Scream 7 does not have either of these actresses, and these two were supposed to be the lead of the franchise. So that puts Scream 7 in a very, very tough place. So tough that they're going to have to cough up so much money to bring back Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott. Because if they do that, that's going to be their only really thing to hold on to in terms of marketing this movie. Sidney's back. Come on and watch her fight Ghostface one last time. You know, same thing with what Halloween was supposed to do with Jamie Lee Curtis's character, but they fumbled the bag terribly with that third movie. Oh my God, Halloween Ends was absolutely atrocious. Yeah, but I don't want Scream 7 to be the Halloween Ends of the Scream franchise. I really wish it kind of just ended with 4, or maybe just ended with 5. You know, 5 felt like a good ending, really, you know. Oh well, it's not a horror franchise if you don't have 13 shitty sequels compared to your 1 or 2 great movies, right? So naturally, this is a horror franchise. You're going to have some shitty sequels. I'm very curious to see what comes out of Scream 7, what it will eventually become, if it becomes anything. They might just cancel it outright. Who knows? And I'm very curious to see if Melissa Barrera gets more work after this. I hope she does. She's a great actress. I saw In the Heights, and she was very talented in that. Very, very eye-captivating. So she has gravitas when it comes to screen presence and talent. So despite her political views, however people may see that as problematic or not, I don't see it as problematic. She should get more work. I hope to see her get more work. So I wish her all the best, man. Spielberg calls Dune one of the most brilliant sci-fi movies ever seen, that he's ever seen. And that scene surfing the sandworm is one of the greatest he has ever seen. Ever. What high praise, man. I mean, Christopher Nolan compared Dune Part 2 to Empire Strikes Back, which Empire Strikes Back is undebatably the best Star Wars movie in the entire franchise. Everyone loves Empire. Empire is the one where, spoiler alert, we find out Vader is Luke's father, so that is the best one out of the original trilogy and then out of the entire saga for a lot of people. And for Dune Part 2, so think you're Denis Villeneuve and you've made a sci-fi epic, Part 2 to your first one that, yes, it was good, but not everyone really caught on to it. Some people are like, it's slow, this and this and that. It's all world building, this and this and that, which understandably it is. But not everyone caught on to it. They're not like, oh, yes, we need more. But with Dune Part 2, everyone seems to be catching on to it. Like, oh, shit, this is the shit. You know, like this is where everyone's giving high praise. Even directors in the industry. I haven't really heard all these directors come out and praise the first one like they are this second one. I mean, even right now, Steven Spielberg's like, this is the greatest sci-fi film he's ever seen. You know, he wasn't saying that about the first one. So, it's insane. I can't imagine being Denis Villeneuve right now. He's on cloud 9, cloud 10, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I can't imagine being Denis Villeneuve right now, man. He's on the highest ride of his career, his life. I mean, he directed probably one of the best modern sci-fi movies ever. I mean, to a lot of people, probably the best sci-fi movie ever. One of the best book adaptations maybe ever, you know. I remember saying that he's doing for Dune what Peter Jackson did for Lord of the Rings. He's giving it that ultimate adaptation to the point where I don't see Dune being remade again. The story of Paul Atreides, I don't see it being remade again in the future. It probably will be, but I don't see it being remade. The same thing with the story of Frodo and the Ring, the Fellowship, Aragorn becoming king again. That whole story, I don't see that being redone again in live action or really anywhere. I don't really see it being redone like that. So I think that's what this Dune movie is. So we are definitely currently in a time where we're getting a great film adaptation of a novel. Whether you vibe with it or not, it's still a great adaptation of the source material. So it's insane, man. I cannot wait to see what comes out of Denis Villeneuve's filmography post-Dune. When he's done with Dune Messiah, what other project is he going to do? Because he already did Blade Runner. Is he going to do more with Blade Runner? Maybe, maybe not. Is he going to do another large IP? I know a lot of Batman Beyond fans want him to tackle Batman Beyond. That'd be cool if he does something in that vein where he goes with fun and wacky IPs, but he makes them grounded, serious, and these spectacles of a world believable. Right now he's the one to do that, man. So I'm very curious to see what he does post Dune, because all of his work before Dune was masterful. Talk about great directors, man. Him and Christopher Nolan, great living directors right now, for sure. I think that's going to be it, man. This video's gone on for a little too long right now, so I'm going to cut it off right here. This is what I feel like I want to do. This is like probably the best thing. I'm going to shorten up my opinions on each one so I can get more topics and more posts fit into one video rather than just a couple. But what do you think of me doing videos like this, where I go through my news feed and just read off anything that I see and just give my 2 cents? I know, I'm with you. I'll do it faster next time, but hopefully this video comes out. If it does and you watched it to the end, thank you very much, so much. It's very greatly appreciated. Let me know what you think of it down below. What are your thoughts on any of the topics that came up in the video? Let me know down below. Do you agree with the topics say? Do you agree with the articles say? Do you agree with my opinions? Yes or no? Let me know down below. And as always, please like, share, and subscribe, support the channel. It's always very much appreciated. To the Mic is a podcast that I co-host with my good friend Nano, and that is available down below in the description. Both links to the Apple podcast link and the Spotify link, both of them are down below, available in the description. Go check that out. We are in a new year, 2024, so that means we're on season 2. Season 1, I think, only has like 5 episodes, but they're pretty lengthy, pretty long. We talk about basically whatever comes up between us. We can really fill up 2 hours, 3 hours maybe if we wanted to. So go over, check that out for some fun, casual chat. I hope you're all safe and all out there, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.